Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. Let's go ahead and talk about some emblems. Also, sorry for the advertisements in the background, and also thank you to Landon, the guy that made the Tactics Ogre Knight of Lodis website. What was it, like 2 decades ago now? Man, this website has been around since I was a little kid, like on friggin' AOL, and yet it's still here with the same information, still being useful. How the hell has this been around like so much longer than so many other things that I used to know? Anyway, let's go ahead and get into it here. So, there's specifically a few emblems in Knight of Lodis I wanted to cover here today because the emblem system was a really cool kind of one-off mechanic that they did there. So, for Knight of Lodis, for those that haven't played it, basically the idea was that you had this. This was basically kind of like a badge case for every one of your characters, where these characters would effectively do cool things, and they would get prizes for it. When they did so, this did things like unlock classes, give them stats, and whatever else. And honestly, this was the coolest system throughout the entire series, in my opinion. Now, that is to say, potentially. Obviously, it was a Game Boy game. There really only was so much that they could explore with it. But you have no idea how much I wish that if they ever revisited, like, doing another game of the series, whether it's a remake of something or whatever else, that somehow, some way, they would expand on this system. Because this is just the coolest way to do unique properties to your characters. I wanted to talk about a few cases where they really got it right in this one in terms of evolving the kind of Tactics Ogre SNES experience to the Game Boy. The way that they technically boiled down some things, similarly to how PSP was kind of boiled into a more cohesive state with Reborn there. There's a lot of things in this one that I just really love on a conceptual level, and I just wanted to rant about that a little bit. So, first and foremost, Blood Rain. It's probably the most on-the-nose one, but effectively this is the same thing that they did with the Dark Knight in FFT. I think I mistakenly partially mistook that for the Fell Knight. I guess it goes by a few names in the different versions. Whatever. Anyway, you know what I mean. You get the Gafgarian dude. Anyway, and you basically get the same requirement as the Terror Knight back in the original Tactics Ogre of killing 25 enemies to get a terror effect on people nearby. Now, realistically, I'm really glad that they actually didn't include the Terror Knight in this version, which, frankly, the Terror Knight only kind of works in the whole Valeria context there, because they were kind of the ones that were doing the genocide. At least that's how I like to read it. But in terms of the Blood Rain emblem, basically what they looked at with the original Tactics Ogre was like, okay, look, the original Terror Knight here basically was your reward for going chaotic. If you went down the chaotic path, your final kind of class there for Denim was going to be the Terror Knight. If they went neutral, they were a Dragoon. If they were lawful, they became a frickin' Jedi. So, effectively, there really doesn't... It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have this kind of path-locked class as just a thing to throw in here. It's a 25 kill requirement, but you're not necessarily getting an entirely different class for it. And basically, it had a effect on there that you really wouldn't see that much. It had a sort of passive fear effect that would slightly debuff units nearby you if you were a Terror Knight. I'm curious to hear in the comments whether anybody ever noticed that actually taking place, because I went out of my way to use a Terror Knight during one of my playthroughs, first playthroughs of the PS1 version. I never saw a difference. So, either way, if anybody's ever seen any actual effect from that, I'm assuming it's the usual, like, +4, -4 kind of thing. But they did a few things differently with it here. For one thing, they actually gave you a morale mechanic, which is just kind of cool. So you have, for example, certain classes that will kind of embolden other classes. Like, all the dudes like to hang out around the Valkyries, apparently, so they boost morale +1 for all male units nearby and stuff like that. It's a minor bonus, but it's kind of cool. Anyway, though, when it came to Blood Rain, they kept the same requirements in order to get this emblem, but it just kind of gives that effect to any other unit. But it goes beyond that, because instead of simply being a class, it's an ending. You actually can only get the ending that leads to the sort of canonical outcome to this game by getting Blood Rain on Alphonse. If he doesn't personally kill 25 people and lose his girlfriend to the Antichrist, he's not going down that road. In fact, the total opposite, the B ending, is arguably the, like, no-holds-barred happiest ending throughout the entire series. Like, he goes off with Elenor, they're banging in the woods. I don't know why so many of these games end with banging in XYZ random location. Anyway, so they're off going doing it. You got Ivana and Richter that are just kind of becoming royalty and just running the island now. Everybody else just kind of goes there off there on their merry way. The island is doing fine. They gain autonomy. Lodis is just fine with this whole situation. They kind of chill out and just kind of stick to peacekeeping duties. Everything works out great. The church never goes all crazy and takes over everything. Like it's just like entire plot of the series resolved before it starts. So I love that that's here, but I love the implications of this particular emblem for that particular reason. Some are a bit more obvious, like it's kind of cool with Dragon Slayer, how you personally have to kill some dragons to actually earn your ability to be a dragoon and stuff like that. It's actually funny that OB64 kind of started the whole dragoon as a dragon killer thing. Before that, it was just shiny or knight. So like they were just the offensive knight variant, or they were just a very special knight back in March of the Black Queen, and then Ogre Battle 64 is like, no, but then the dragoons all died, and they were really good at killing dragons. The only way you can actually earn the right to be one of these, aside from just buying an item that lets you mind control one onto your team for free, is to go and go kill the ghost of this dragon that ate the last dragoon and pull a sword out of its ass. Like it's so unnecessarily metal, but you gotta love it. In fact, it's funny how they reference that particular dragon twice. One by forcing you to kill dragons to unlock the dragoon, and also through the Graz Nai emblem here, over here. So have a dragon go through all 8 of the dragon classes, and they permanently stay at maximum morale. So it's just kind of cool that that's here. So yeah, that again, there's a lot of cool emblems here, but I just appreciate that one. Nothing too special about Animal Hunter. It's basically the same thing, but worse. Just to give the ladies a version of that, since they don't get the dragoon. What's funny is that arbitration basically turns any character into denim, giving them the ability to persuade somewhat accurately. It's actually funny. Originally, I never picked up on the fact that there's actually specific classes that will actually be better at recruiting other classes. Like the Beast Tamer is obvious. That one you can see right away. It's very easy to do. But the Griffins and stuff like that aren't too strong in this one, so it doesn't feel too crazy. But then I never realized, for example, that when it came to dealing with basic soldiers, you can just send a knight to go recruit them. Or, the Valkyries are generally seemingly better at talking to dudes and stuff like that, which kind of makes sense given their morale bonus. But that, by the way, might have been a total biorhythm thing. Could be completely wrong on that. I'm not actually 100% certain if that's a mechanic or not. We can check that in just a sec. Actually, that probably should be over here, I would assume. Anyway. But it's just kind of cool to have that option at the very start of the game of just like, would you like to start with the same bonus, or would you like to be a cooler leader this time around? Actually, side note here on Berserk, Biorhythm is one of those mechanics that's like, it's been there throughout the entire series. It's always just typically referred to as luck and daily luck. I think this is the only time it's actually referred to as biorhythm, where every character has a specific up and down pattern to how their luck goes. And basically on the higher end of luck, just better stuff happens to you. Lower end of luck, worse things happen. I think this is probably the most fleshed out it's ever been. Like if we go over here, specifically, there's different drop tables for everything that you pick up, depending on what kind of group they are, what kind of biorhythm you're running, and stuff like that. So you can absolutely go into Celia Beach at the very start, burn the grass tile next to the bush near the front of the church, and just potentially save scum for a free orb at the start of the game. But the thing is, you never know if you're actually on high biorhythm at that point yet. It's one of those things that I saw theorized for speedruns and things, but the problem is it always starts at a random location, so you gotta test it out for a decently long time until you can figure out where you are in the biorhythm spectrum. So it's a bit hard to predict, which makes sense, because I doubt they were kind of designing it with speedrunning in mind. But it's just funny that that's here. Though I will argue that getting the Trident or Great Bow as your first drop is going to be a bit more useful. Those are more common categories. In fact, the planes at the very start have three drops from this category over here, which can be pretty darn useful. Any darn ways. Let's get back to it here. Actually, especially the composite bow. Like this is good shit. Composite bow is basically one of the best crossbows you can get, and you have to have specifically low biorhythm. I don't know why you have to be down on your luck to get a really good crossbow, but whatever. Anywho, sorry, more ads. Here, let's check real quick if it mentions if the Valk actually has a thingamadili to it. If I click on them, is it going to say? Probably not. Actually, wait a minute. Does it say percentages? Persuasion guide. Let's see, since only parts of it can be found, I had to fill in some gaps myself. The base to starting persuaded, and that is reduced according to how weakened the target is. Okay, so does the Valk get anything according to this? Yeah, they would be better at persuading dragoons, swordmasters, and warlocks. Okay, cool. So there we go. That is actually a thing. They are better at talking to the dudes. Though the witches and a witch with a heart on it, same thing. Anyway. So it's just cool that classes have that in this one. I don't know why they ended up ditching that mechanic for the racial mechanic in PSP. Like, I guess to some extent it makes it a bit more freeform, ties you down to your class a bit less. But I really like this as an idea because, like, thinking about it, okay, thinking about it in the most cynical way possible. Okay, two people are going into a fight, and the way that I'm kind of picturing it is just like, okay, in the Knight of Lodis system, they go up and, like, a soldier sees a knight, they're like, oh shit, this guy's higher ranked than me, he's gonna be a better fighter than me, or this warlock is just like, oh man, like, mystical badass lady over there. All right, what do we got? Like, it just feels like they'd be immediately put into that position of like, I don't want to fight you. Let's talk. You know, just based off visuals, based off reputation alone, right? And then it feels like what happens with high rank recruit, high rank anatomy in the PSP version. What are they just going up and grabbing somebody by the junk? Guess what we're doing afterwards? Like that always seemed a little bit of a weird interaction to me. I'm not too shocked that got taken out for Reborn, because basically the implications are either torture or nookie, and neither one is sounding particularly good for the case you're trying to make. So, I just found that funny. Anyway, speaking of funny ways that this ends up happening, you actually have emblems in this one for Broken Heart for male characters that fail at persuading female characters 10 times, whereas female characters only have to recruit one to get the Witch class, which is funny because it also means that technically the Valkyrie might be the best way to get the Witch, and huh. Come to think of it, what would be a better way? Well, I guess female knight might be really good at getting female soldiers, so yeah, that makes sense. And they are better at recruiting themselves. So, objectively speaking, let's see. On the flip side of things, who does the game consider to be the... Apparently the Swordmasters are considered the hottest dude, because they get... aside from the Beast Tamers and their ability to tame stuff over here, they get the biggest variety of units that like them, including the Lady Archers and the Lady Ninjas, who are arguably the most stylish. So, you know what? I think that's what they were going for with that one. Also, apparently, actually, it's interesting to see that Richter actually gets a advantage for recruiting clerics. Anyway, it's funny how this was supposed to be a thing about emblems, and it somehow ended up being a weird thing about shipping random generic units together, as well as who can recruit who. Anyway, all right, another funny emblem. Like, I feel like this one was just kind of obligatory, because you know somebody saw Canopus just punch somebody's head clean off in the original Tactics Ogre, and they're like, I gotta have this for every Hawkman. So, Fist Fight, this is interestingly hidden, because I feel like Fist Fight is one of those things that just kind of clearly determines who's played the game before and who hasn't. Because somebody who hasn't played the game before will be focused on getting all, weapons and all kinds of things, in terms of melee weapons and whatnot. And, like, anybody that's played the thing before, it's just, like, immediately, just, like, take off all your equipment. Y'all are going to just pull a mother base out on that beach and just punch each other until somebody learns how to go friggin' go Mortal Kombat on somebody. So, it's like, get in there and get fisting. For those that have never seen this emblem in action, it literally turns your fist into an endgame weapon. Like, basically an endgame kind of neutral tier thing. So, like, let's see, in Reborn terms, since I'm assuming most of the folks here are from Reborn, imagine if you just turned your fist into the Lombardia. Like, you just immediately went from that to Lombardia at the very start of the game. You're just immediately there. I mean, granted, that is an elemental weapon, so it's not the best example, but I just mean in terms of something that somebody definitely will have, because to say that they went from that to friggin' Korra +1 doesn't really say very much. So, anyway, that's kind of neat. Anyway, moving on. Actually, another one of those really funny ones, Don Quixote, that you actually lose 10 intelligence if you have a character take a counterattack for 2/3 of their health. It's like, you are such a dumbass, we have to replace that. We have to explain that with stats. It's such a, I love it. I love it. And it's especially funny that units can get this. They can literally get brain damage from training, courtesy of the Don Quixote emblem. So it's just funny that it's here. Something like Centurion is just a beautiful nod to skipping the grind for solo runs that you can immediately just have. Like, at the very start of the game, you can just have Alphonse run out, have Ivana backing him up, just to make sure that she doesn't get any kills. Plus 20 strength. Just a huge bonus at the very start, and you can just completely keep things going over and over with this. And what's funny is that Centurion is basically a carryover of the MVP system from back in the original Tactics Ogre, because if you have one character finish off everybody in the stage, they get the MVP bonus of a free level up, so that's just kind of a cool nod there. Charisma, if you get all your stats leveled up, you get the headband from Ogre Battle 64. You get what's his face? Destin's headband. So all allies within 3 spaces get their morale increased. It's a cool touch that if you become an endgame character, you permanently are an anti-Terror Knight now. You actually get a penalty. You lose the ability to use crits whatsoever if you gain 20 levels in training. Again, another one of those just fun ones there. I think this only actually starts counting after a certain point, because I had to get to level 25 when I was testing this with a ninja, so I'm not sure what was up with that. It might have just been late to trigger for some reason or another. Obviously, there's going to be quite a lot of these for different things or other. Actually, one of the ones that I really enjoyed, that I feel like... See, this is one of those ones that didn't make sense to me for the longest time, because I thought that this was just kind of annoying my first time through. Because it's like, you get a unit, they die, they get the Archangel's Feather. Okay, cool, that just denotes that they've died once and come back from the dead. You know, it's a cool little thing for their badge case. But to get an Angel, they have to meet the stat requirements and also die twice. So... obviously, clearly, it's a very pre-release Sekiro reference. No, in this particular case, it's interesting because I have a feeling that somebody ran into the same situation that always bugged me about Palace of the Dead in the original Tactics Ogre. Because more often than not, the units that you're using for your healing are probably going to be your lady units that also have high intelligence, aka the lawful, Healy units with good stats are probably going to be the ones that instantly transform into angels and lose their ability to use their healing spells. Because if they die in that condition, they just come back as angels immediately. If you kill them again, they are still angels. They are permanently changed into that class. So bizarrely enough, it was actually a kind of weird occupational hazard of clerics back in the original Tactics Ogre there. I mean, it's something that I saw happen to Olivia on several different playthroughs, so I know that it's definitely not the most uncommon thing in the world. Granted, they're kind of an obvious shoe-in for that particular thing, but it can happen to any of your female characters, so it's just, again, a bit of an odd thing. Now, granted, in this case, the Angel was opened up to both genders, but it's just cool to see that here as a bit of a fail-safe in case it happens, so that, you don't just instantly lose a character. Actually, as a bit of a side note, we'll be covering other post-game content for these different games, because Night of Lodis's post-game is just... it's such a beautiful boil-down of Palace of the Dead. It's like you got Palace of the Dead remade several different times, and it's just this long, hellish, freakishly long dungeon, and then Night of Lodis comes along and they're like, what if you just did like a mid-level floor, and you just could repeat that, and you just got like shit tons of loot from it? How does that work? You're like guaranteed at least 3 drops every time you go through. It's just the one floor, you get the same general vibes of the thing. If you want to, you can just go snipe the leader for slightly less loot. It's like, yeah, that works. That works pretty darn well, actually. You just kind of come and go as you please. Oh, man. Like, yeah, it's casualified, but does anybody actually enjoy going into Palace of the Dead? I don't think anyone's actually looked at it and been like, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to doing right now. I mean, outside of getting particular types of loot or something, like occasionally you're looking forward to the items, but it's never the experience of the place itself. It's meant to be a shithole on purpose. Okay. Also, love that you get a specific emblem only by getting one of the bad endings at the very end of the game if you're killed by the final boss. And then the fortune teller's all like, oh man, they messed up. Well, I guess we're all doomed now. Let's see. Oh yeah. Mark of the Elite. That's what Okay, ignore the thing I said about the charisma bonus, though. I think not charisma bonus. What did I say? Centurion. Actually, maybe Centurion does this too. What the hell does Centurion do? Because Mark of the Elite is... I always get Centurion and Mark of the Elite at the same time on solo runs, but where's... Where are you, thingamajig? I'm gonna feel like such an idiot after this. There we go. Yeah, plus 20 strength. That's what it is. So, Centurion plus Mark of the Elite. Granted, in most cases, you're probably doing both of those at the same time. I'm sure I'm not the only one that loves to start off with Alphonse just being an absolute friggin' just Giga Chad and just killing everything with his fists. So, either way, one of the reasons that that's actually very good is you get that strength bonus from that one, you get the level ups from this one for even more stats, and then that fist fight is just automatically a counter attack on your bow, which is already doing more damage now, so you can just combine both of those to just be an absolute monster at all ranges. It's just nice. Anyway, so you got Miracle that very well might be a reference to the almost, there's a glitch in the originals where it's like a less than 1% chance to potentially fail a 100% attack. I don't know if it's directly a thing for that, but Miracle will negate anything that prevents you from critting, like that bogus hero thing over there. But it's just, it's kind of neat that this is one of the things that you can start with. It makes you more likely to hit crits, and it doesn't mention this, but I believe it makes you more likely to dodge as well. I'm not sure. I always felt like it did, but who knows? And what's funny is, as a bit of a side note, or I guess final note, because I have to get going here, but embodiment of desires here. Of the 4 that you start with, for the longest time, I kept thinking, like, I always want to start off with arbitration, but I never knew about the class bonus. So realistically, arbitration's pretty easy to get. You can start off with fist fight, and that's egregiously easy to get. You can start off with miracle, but again, pretty darn easy to get. You get yourself less than 5%, and you just get it in training. Embodiment of the desires, the more that I thought about it, despite being the kind of almost throwaway pick at first glance, is kind of the best one to pick at the start, if you think about it. Because, like, you have to pick up 5 things in order to activate its bonus, but its bonus can potentially unlock a lot of new things for you at the very start. So, like, going back to the list of drops here, so, like, if we look over these various things here, typically you're going to be seeing a lot of Group 1 type of items all over the place, right? If you ever go to tacticsogre.com, by the way, all of this is just on there. But Group 1 would just be, like, slight upgrades to some of your weapons, getting, better bows, some healing items, and things like that. Whereas the Group 2 items are going to be a lot more of your permanent stat upgrade items. And especially, there's Sorcerer's Cups. So, Sorcerer's Cups are one of those things that's just, like... It's extremely difficult to get a hold of MP for any MP-related class. It is by far the hardest stat to get a hold of in this game, because for every other stat, you can power level pretty quickly through the right classes. You don't get access until to a caster until about 6 or 7 or so. Again, without the use of Sorcerer's Cups or something. So especially if you were going to try and pick up Deneb super early, you can't actually turn her into a witch without about 4 of these. So... either way, it's an interesting thing that 2/3 of the time on your biorhythm, if you set yourself to Group 2 at the very start there, you can get a chance to roll this item. Is this very oddly specific of a reason to go pick up that thing? And is it really that difficult of a thing to get in and of itself? I mean, thinking about it, between the 4 of them, it would be the hardest one to get. Because while you do have 5 things that are available to you right at the get-go, like typically the ones that I go for are going to be the Dragon Shield. You got the Glass Pumpkin. You got the one rando drop that shows up at in the field there. 2 more that show up in the Formido. Actually, technically 3 in Formido, because you got the fan, I believe it is, on top of the wall. You got the thing by the rock at the bottom, and then you got the thing by the staircase. And then, if you specifically missed one of those, or just forgot about one, or whatever else, you still got the tile that's over by the beach, where you can just go quickly grab the one by the house. But either way, it's not that any of them are impossible to get in the early game, it's just, I think between all of them, this is probably the longest to obtain between the 4, and potentially is the most game-changing. But anyway. So there's a lot of interesting stuff to all of these different emblems. Like, I mean, I love the fact that they try to throw in some Ogre Battle 64 with the Swordmaster and their dodging stuff here. Um, but yeah, those were the ones that I specifically wanted to talk about. It's an interesting thing to me. I hope that at some point they revisit this particular thing. Because there was specifically a thing for an upcoming video with Vale that I was hoping to discuss with all of this stuff, and I wanted to get this one out early for a little bit of context. So, anyway, yeah, somebody please make use of this emblem system. Like, I don't care if it's a new IP or whatever else. Like, just somebody use this. This is really cool. Anyway, I gotta go. Later.